GWR Radio. Good afternoon. GWR. You're the best in the West. You're a tough sharpshooter and you aim to win.
GWR FM is Southern England's largest independent local radio station. Broadcasting from Swindon, Bristol and Bath, it covers 6 counties and has a potential audience of over 1.5 million. GWR represents the merged operations of Wiltshire Radio and Radio West. Wiltshire Radio went on the air in 1982. The station is housed in an old farmhouse in Wootton Bassett. Limekiln Studios, parts of which date from the 17th century, were acquired complete with ghosts and strange happenings.
Some people complained that they could smell the ghost as well. They used to smoke a pipe. So they'd say, we can smell the ghost again. So one year we'd had a really difficult time and the ghost was giving us a lot of trouble. So we had him exorcised, got the priest in, did the works, and away he went.
Real ghosts or not, the station had a spirit of adventure about it, because up until then, people living in the Swindon area had no local radio to tune into.
It was an exciting time. It was virgin territory. There were no stations serving this area other than national stations, so the people didn't have any identity in terms of local output from that kind of media.
3 years later, Wiltshire Radio merged with Radio West. In 1986, Plymouth Sound joined the GWR group. And in 1987, an FM transmitter was provided for Bath listeners. The most recent additions to the group are Radio 210 in Reading and 2CR in Bournemouth. GWR FM is able to be a truly local radio station by broadcasting separate breakfast shows and news bulletins to Bristol, Swindon and Bath.
The unique selling point of GWR, if you like, is its relevance to the local community. If you're watching a national television station or listening to a national radio station, they'll try and convince you that what's happening in their base in London is important. They'll try and convince you that what some MP you've never heard of said in the House of Commons is important. It's not. What you want to know is whether your council house rent is increasing, whether the M4 motorway is being dug up and there are huge tailbacks.
GWR FM, 7:11 on a Thursday morning. I'm Steve Orchard with your breakfast show. Good morning. Just 10 minutes away now from our 3-day weather check on GWR FM, the weather station.
Weather dry with some sunshine. Good morning, this is Magnus Carter.
The Roadshow will be there joining in the festivities today. The Roadshow playing from 11 o'clock this morning till 5 o'clock this afternoon. Well, each programme is carefully linked to the pace of the listener's day. So if you listen at breakfast time, you'll hear a very fast-paced programme because people are rushing around, they're getting ready for work, they're getting the kids off to school. The chunks of their day, if you like, are little ones, they're just 3 minutes long. And so nothing in breakfast time is allowed to take more than 3 minutes, whether it be a news report, a record or whatever. As you go later on into the day, you can expect people to be listening for longer. If they're listening at 11:05, it's fairly likely they'll still be listening at 11:30. So you can pick up a subject at 11:05, carry on with it till 11:30, and still assume that those people are listening.
Some radio stations have more crackle than pop. That's why on GWR FM we play all our music from compact disc. The latest in sound technology harnessed to make certain you get the best all day. So next time you turn on your radio and you hear this, then you're going to know it's not us. GWR FM, all CD, all day. More snap, less crackle in your pop.
Sharper than ever is our current slogan, and we're sharper than ever really on 2 counts. One is the technical side, which is the CD jukeboxes. Everything we play now is CD. This has got 2 advantages. Number 1, it's better quality, and it doesn't get worse as we go on as we play it. Single vinyls, every time you play it, the quality drops a little bit, not so with CD. So technically it's a lot sharper than ever. Musically it's a lot sharper than ever as well, because we've been able to be terribly fussy and picky about what we're actually playing. We started off with a catalogue of CD material. We've gradually fine-tuned that, so we've ended up with an on-air library which is really strong music. And every time you hear a song on GWR FM, it's perfect quality and it's a great song.
The jukeboxes are controlled by 2 computers. One is a mechanical one for actually driving the jukeboxes. The other computer is used to select the music. The jukeboxes are relayed through to the studio from the touch screen which the presenter operates in the studio.
And the computer's main job is to make sure we get a good balance of music across the whole program. We have to look at the whole day. We have to look at programming a day's programs on GWR and a week's programs and a fortnight's and a month and so on. And that's where a computer can come in to make sure the same song doesn't come up at the same time every morning, or the same artist doesn't come up too often, and so on and so on and so on.
Avon's Labour Group leader is slamming as a disgrace an advert for potential Tory councillors.
GWR FM runs a busy news service from 6 o'clock in the morning with news bulletins on the hour every hour and updates on stories every 20 minutes. There are 2 newsrooms, one based in the Wootton Bassett studios and one in the Watershed studios in Bristol. The news covers a mix of national and local news, giving local flavour to national news where it directly affects the listeners. As part of the service, GWR FM broadcasts interviews live from the studio to provide a wealth of fact and opinion. So where do the stories come from?
There are as many stories and as many sources for stories as there are people in the area. I remember when I was a cub reporter myself, my boss said to me, he said, right, now you're a reporter, when you go into the pub in the evening, you don't ask people how they are, you ask them what's doing. And that basically is a fundamental rule of news gathering. You're always on the lookout for something that's of interest, something that's out of the ordinary, something that people ought to know about.
National news comes down from London, from an agency called IRN. They send that in 2 different forms. They send it down the wire, what we call a wire, which is like a teleprinter, which operates as a rip and read service. All right, we rip it off and we read it. And they also send down audio pieces to one of our news bays here in the newsroom. So that is how we get our national and international news, and our national and international sport as well. So that'll be nice, getting his reaction to what the FA
With
says.
such a wealth of information flowing into the newsrooms, how do the news editors decide which stories to run?
I always ask the question, how interesting is this story to our listeners? All right, are they going to want to know the information that's going to come out of it? And so it's instinct. I have to think, yes, the GWR listener wants to know more about this. All right, it's curiosity. It's whether it raises a question mark.
There are certain subjects that people are always interested in. And I can sum those up, I think, by talking about the famous 4 Ps. The first one is princes, people who are famous, people who are immediately known. You don't have to explain who they are. And that can be, you know, a senior politician, it can be somebody who's in the news at the moment, it can be literally a prince or princess. Then there's purses, and that means things that affect the money in your pocket, matters about the rates, about the taxes, and so on, all those things, which people are always interested in. There are people, and people are always interested in people, stories that have people at the centre of them, essentially. And finally, a rather poor fourth, in my view, politicians.
Thanks very much, Peter. Cheers, bye-bye.
The GWR FM news service comes under pressure from 2 sources. The first is a legal constraint. The other potential pressure is from advertisers who think they can influence what goes out on air.
It would be quite wrong to turn a blind eye and say there's no such thing as commercial pressure. Clearly there is. There have been occasions when advertisers have tried it on, I have to say, and they get pretty short shrift. I mean, the independence of the news is something that's vital to our operation. It's the listener we'd be letting down, after all.
Putting together a programme may sound easy, but each hour has to fit a strict regime of news bulletins and ad breaks. But in the first line of the task, it's not the presenters, but the GWR engineers whose job it is to ensure the best possible technical quality is maintained.
In this radio station, the engineers have to do a lot of different types of engineering. So we maintain everything from the tape recorders right through to the complicated studio desks. We have to know about the radio car, the mechanics of the car, even down to starting it on a cold day, and even down to sorting out the heating if that goes wrong and the air conditioning.
While each programme retains its own identity, collectively they add up to give the distinctive GWR FM station sound.
There's something about GWR radio, GWR FM radio, that when you turn it on, you know it's GWR FM. And we maintain that balance throughout the day, whatever the programme.
Children.
24 hours a day across the West.
Now we're going to go up ourselves in a Boeing Stearman, relay the excitement.
GWR maintains a high public profile. The GWR FM Roadshow is out and about at over 200 events every year, broadcasting lively coverage of the day and providing a face-to-face focus for listeners to meet the people they hear daily on the radio.
What amazing scenes here at the Air Day. We've had a Harrier jump jet hover over the main arena as I speak here, and it's amazingly low. It's almost in reaching distance. You want to jump up and touch the wheels. Unbelievable.
GWR Radio in association with Hall's Brewery, the 10th anniversary Bristol International Blues. So we're here on the Moving Sound Roadshow stage, so pop down and see us today. David's here from 10 o'clock right through till midday. Joining us, one of the greatest enthusiasts of the sport probably, Robin Batchelor. Hello again, Robin.
Good morning.
Grounded again today, although the sun's shining now, it really is becoming a beautiful day, but this morning pretty atrocious again.
It was awful, yes. The wind speed was up at about 30 knots, and it's just too dangerous to fly.
GWR FM also sponsors some of their own concert events, such as the Royal Philharmonic Pops Orchestra at Durham Park, which was staged in association with the National Trust.
We broadcast every year from the Bath Festival, set up a special radio station for all the Bath Festival. We also sponsor the GWR Radio Marlborough Festival as well every year. So all those are ways in which people can come to events and, if you like, get a bonding with the radio station. All of a sudden, the radio station is no longer just coming out of the loudspeaker. It's there, it's a physical entity that they can see and touch and feel. And events like that are very important. We've always got to remember that when people come into contact with their local radio station, as far as the presenters are concerned, it's part of their job, it's something that happens all the time. But for that one person you're dealing with, it may be the most exciting thing that happens to them all week, or maybe even all month. And so you've got to make it special for them.
To survive and grow as a popular radio station, GWR FM has to maintain a regular visual reminder of the station's presence and a daily encouragement to tune in. The Bristol-based advertising agency Harris & Cowley has been working for GWR FM to build an attractive image for the station.
I mean, once you have identified a particular audience, you have to find what appeals to that audience, hence the Sharper Than Ever campaign, which is appealing to the youth of today, and the fact that they want to hear sharper, more zappy music. It was portrayed in a number of different ways. There was the razor blade coming out of a speaker. There's also a pair of rotating circular saw blades on a stereo, and finally there's the scissors. So it comes from the sort of sharper edge and that sort of connotation.
An important part of the service to the community is Linkline, the social action broadcasting arm of GWR FM, linking the station with local organisations and GWR FM listeners.
I sometimes think you could describe us as the public face of the radio station, because we have our roots in the community that the radio serves. We're actually talking about the community of listeners, which is everybody who has a radio, who's tuned into GWR, or who knows that Linkline exists. One of the biggest problems that people have is that when they come against a problem, they feel as though there isn't an answer. And if you ring Linkline, we will actually give you a number of alternatives to solve that problem.
As far as we're concerned, we are an educational broadcasting unit. And that is using education in its very broadest sense.
I think the other thing is that we are in touch with so many people that we are really in tune with what the listeners are wanting. And we're constantly feeding that through. The real unique part is that we're actually blending those two parts together inside our own organisation. It's not two organisations working in cooperation, it's actually a model of partnership.
Over the years that GWR has been running, they have demonstrated how effectively radio can motivate listeners to give to charity. The highlight of the GWR year is the Christmas Appeal, which not only raises thousands of pounds, but also attracts thousands of participants.
You can only get it on the great GWR FM and Brunel Radio Christmas Appeal.
£220 we a bid. Do I hear 230?
25. We've got £225. We are looking for 230.
Meanwhile, in the studios, the race is on to raise money through auction.
Yeah, 1,250. The calls are coming thick and fast.
Hello, I'm looking for 340.
Bidders' calls are received here in this studio and relayed by the producer to the presenters who are trying to persuade listeners to part with their money.
Yes. We want 260 now because we are insatiable. Insatiable boys.
Wicked boys here.
Spondition.
Keep the calls coming in. We have got £260.
And we want more. Find out what's happening on quick sales.
We've got some Pirelli calendars. Whoa! Pirelli calendars, one each for £84.85.
The station is part of the community. People listen to us because they trust us and like us. And part of that trust and affection is built by the things that we do in return. We are successful because our listeners listen to us and because they buy our advertisers' products. And so it's only right that we should pay some of that back.
From Charabella, £5 if the presenters will sing Jingle Bells.
The Christmas Appeal benefits a lot of small charities who will get anything from £50 to £1,000. Money raised from the 2 yearly walkathons benefits a single large charity which is generally related to health.
However rich you are, however poor you are, wherever you live, there's always the chance that something will happen to your health and that you'll need some form of medical facility which the NHS can't afford to provide. And so that's why we do it for health. In the case of the cancer scanners that we've raised money for, everybody knows somebody whose life has been afflicted by cancer. With meningitis, everybody fears for their child that they may catch meningitis, and they want a cure to be found as soon as possible.
Just 10 minutes away now from our 3-day weather check on
GWR FM was the first station to go all CD all day and will be in the front line of radio development into the 1990s.
Sharper Than Ever FM is only really the beginning. We've always been on FM and we've just brightened up the sound by taking advantage of new technology. And that is the first stage of the next generation of broadcasting. And I can see the time when even the equipment that's behind me here will be out of date and it'll all be touch screens, computers. And although that sounds very unromantic and it takes the mystery out of radio, it will in fact be giving the listener the ultimate in quality that they can get out of any radio, and we'll be the first to do it.
GWR Radio.
GWR FM. All CD, all day.